Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. And today is a very special live stream because today I am joined by, at the moment, probably my two favorite people in FPV. We have the amazing Junus and we have Brian. And if you don't know who these two gentlemen are, they are two of the devs from the WTF FPV project who have delivered us what DJI couldn't do, which is not only OSD on the DJI digital FPV system, but lots of other things as well. So good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Well, excellent. How are you, Brian?
See, I told you, it always happens on a live stream. It always happens. So we got Junus at the bottom and we got Brian at the top. And yeah, look, for me, this is an utter privilege. Now, guys, what I'm going to do, first of all, is just ask everyone, is this working properly? Because as always with a live stream, there is always the possibility. So I'm going to let the two gentlemen speak to make sure you guys can hear them as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jonas, making sure you guys can hear me.
Hey, it's Brian.
So hopefully someone will let us know. Looks and sounds great. Look at that. Absolutely fantastic. So, guys, it's the big week, and it's been quite a week to say the least. And whilst things kicked off a little bit more rapid than I think some of us would have anticipated, it has gone amazingly well. And, you know, for me, it's really interesting because I've known about this for so long. I can't remember how long because Jonas has been teasing me with this forever and drip feeding bits. And it's like, nearly there, getting there. Give us a bit more time. But yeah, how's it gone for you guys this week with the launch?
I think it's gone at least to expectations, if not much better. The donations are definitely coming in. The users are coming in. The routes are working. Nothing broke. That is the important bit. So yeah, no, I think we're quite happy.
And from your point of view, Brian, I'm going to adjust my audio levels because people have said I'm quite loud, so I'm going to just bring mine down a little bit. You know, obviously, you know, Brian, you've been predominantly, from what I've seen, on the OSD side of things, haven't you? And you know, there's two parts to this, isn't there? There's the root hack and WTOFS, and now we've got the OSD packages as well. So from your side of things, how's it gone?
It's gone great. I mean, people are loving it. People are using it. That's really all I ever wanted. And the fonts and the community engagement that we've seen has been phenomenal. Like, for me, open sourcing something, like the first thing we want to see is people from the community showing up and contributing and adding, and especially with the fonts just this week has been
I want to talk about them as well, because some guys have been sharing stuff with me today even, and it's just like, wow, this is moving on so quick. Now, I suppose we should start with what this is, really. And before we do this, I want to say to everyone who's watching right now, there's 115 of you, so hello, thank you for joining us, and we will go on to a Q&A later as well, so please do make sure you hang around for that. Along the bottom, I have got a banner telling you that in the description there is a link to the Open Collective page for the it's the FPV project. Please consider donating to it, especially if you use this, because this isn't just about today. This is also about what happens next, because this is just the beginning, and I'm going to put some stuff on these guys' shoulders now, but you know, this is the current system. There's something else around the corner, and we always know that there's always things that people are going to want. So please consider donating, and we will come on to that more later on, but I wanted to get that in there first. So I don't know, do you guys, Junus, do you want to explain really what this all is as a whole, the project?
So, well, the basis, as you know, is the root, which simply means we can install custom software on the goggles. But then WTF OS is sort of a layer on top of this to enable community functionality and, importantly, make it modular, right? So it's not one monolithic firmware, but the entire point is that developers can come in, make their own packages, and sort of make it a whole ecosystem. So think of it as, you know, Android for goggles. Obviously, that's you know, ways to go. But that's the idea, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is a fully official open source project now as well, isn't it? It is, and hence the reason it's being supported via the Open Collective as well. Because I know we were talking in the week, and it's not just as simple as setting up like a PayPal account and doing it. There are many hoops you guys have had to hop through to ensure that you comply with that as well, isn't it?
Well, the hoops weren't that bad, but yes, you have to have a certain amount of contributors, stars on GitHub, etc., etc. So we did fully open source the margarine exploit for that as well. The rest was already actually fully open source anyway.
So once this started, there really wasn't a goal up front for this, was there? If I remember rightly, Fpv.Osd was sort of a thought everyone had, but the root was obviously the real beginnings of this, wasn't it? That was the path in. And really, what was the goal always OSD, or was it just let's see what we can do?
I mean, I would say the routing effort was inspired by everybody asking for OSD, but it sort of took on a life of its own. And it wasn't until Brian joined and then actually started working on the OSD that actually got kicked off.
Okay.
But it was inspiration because everybody was just asking for it. Right?
Okay. So yeah, and obviously, because I remember when Brian first started showing it and blew everyone's minds very, very quickly when he sort of posted a few things and went, look, and look, in the early days, and there's been a bit of confusion around the difference between the early days and today, in the sense of, look, yes, in the early days, there was limitations. What was the biggest difficulty, Brian, on getting OSD to the goggles? What is the process for that? That's probably the best way to start, actually. It's not as simple as just saying there's an OSD, get on with it, is it? There's a lot of layering behind that.
Yeah. I mean, I showed up to the project kind of after the root was done. I saw the news hit and I was like, oh, someone got into the operating system. Like it's time for us to figure out what's going on here. So I started looking, and I think the hardest part to start was figuring out how to get stuff onto the screen.
Okay.
That DJI kind of accessed the screen using DirectFB, which is like a common mechanism, but it's exclusive. You can't share.
Okay.
So that's where we got you could have the DJI UI or you could have the OSD, and you could only have one or the other. I think the hardest part was kind of teasing out how do we actually share the display layers so that we can render the OSD at the same time as the DJI UI. And then just dealing with all the different flight controllers out there has been really a struggle. That's the thing I would not have predicted when I started this project. I looked at the MSP DisplayPort implementation in Betaflight, and I was like, oh, this is easy. And I implemented it, and it turns out it's way harder.
I love the way you say it was easy because, we spoke about this off stream, why DJI haven't done this, and look, there are some valid reasons, aren't there, when we talk about this, that it might not have happened. And actually, you said something to me before we started that I'd forgotten about, and that is the DJI system. It predates proper MSP DisplayPort. So whilst it's easy to say they should have done this before, it didn't exist at the start. So there are some understandable reasons for that. But you got round those problems, didn't you? Today, there's no limitations on this at all with regards to any of that.
More or less. And I would add to that if we were to build our dream OSD, then it will actually look or technically be quite similar to DJI's.
Okay.
We would let the flight controller sort of be sending draw calls of put this on the screen there. Rather, we would be fetching telemetry from the air side and then doing fancy graphics on the goggles. And that's what DJI went for. So in principle, they had a good approach, but they never followed through, right? And they gave up, they stopped updating it.
Yeah. In some ways, it almost sounds like they didn't know what they had. As you say, they moved on and just, they didn't really push it any further. So, this week we've seen it launch. We've got, as you say, it's really three elements to this as I see it, isn't there? There's the root, there's the WTF OS, and then there's the packages that you have to install as well from a user point of view anyway.
I would add that the third major element is actually the online configurator, because a lot of work went into that. So that is definitely like a third major element. And you know, since we're mentioning it, I'd like to shout out Chris or Style Sucks, who's been working on that this entire time. He wasn't able to join us tonight, but I think he's watching. So hi, Chris. And he's also the man behind escconfigurator.com. So you might have seen some of his work before, and that's another major component.
Yeah, and actually, his work and that work being so good is probably how I've ended up glossing over that. Now, I've got it in the bottom corner for everyone to see as well. But the interesting thing is, it is so seamless. It is so just, you know, this isn't a software from a, you know, you don't have to install anything on your PC. To do this, you're going to a website, plugging the goggles in, and the configurator just does it all for you. Fairly straightforward. Yes, the odd little quirk here and there between firmware versions, as we've seen over the last few days, but overall, it's easier, in fact, than activating a genuine DJI product at the box.
You're right, aren't you? Yeah, yep.
Because you don't have to install their software, at least. So, but yeah, it really is seamless. Now, so with this today. This is with the current system, isn't it? We've got the V1 and the V1 goggles and the V1 system is what I'll call the air side of things a minute, because we are heading into a period where there's probably going to be an 03 system or a version 2, depending on how we want to discuss it. And then we got the V2 goggles. Now, the V1 side of things, everything's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Make sure you're on the latest firmware, which is version 01.00.0606. And it's okay. The V2s is a bit of a mixed bag, isn't it, with regards to the firmware, though? There are some complications.
Yep. So DJI never sort of bothered doing this on the V1s. So I don't know. Maybe they like the project. But yes, the V2s, the latest firmware sort of lock you out from the actual route itself. We don't think DJI did this to combat us specifically. Rather, we got caught in crossfire between DJI and Drone Hacks, who we are also friends with, that have helped us develop all this, etc. So yeah, on the DJI goggles, if you're on version 0015, or rather it's V01.02.0015, or newer, so the Avada firmware, then you can currently root. We are working on something, definitely, but we don't want to give any kinds of estimates because, you know, I told you 4 months ago that we'd go live in 2 weeks. So.
I remember that. I'm just going to adjust the audio levels a little, people. I'm going to drop them down. I have got Junus on maximum on my side. So what I'm going to do is drop the other two of us down a little bit, so to compensate that way, guys. There's always challenges with a live stream like this with different microphones, different systems. It can always be a nightmare. It really can. The levels don't look too far off on my side, but what I've done is just brought the other two down. So if there's an issue with that, folks, let me know.
Brought my mic closer, so all right.
But yeah, so with the V2s as it stands today, there are some firmware versions this doesn't work on, which is basically 0015 and 1.3 is the easiest two. However, it's not quite correct, is it, that it doesn't work? It does work, sort of. You just can't do it if you're already on that firmware, isn't it?
Yes. So you have to root on the compatible firmwares. And then actually a few days ago, I was testing something related to Msp Osd and it being installed or uninstalled. And then I saw switch to Avada on the screen. And I was like, wait. Oh, it works.
Yeah.
We actually didn't know. No. But I will say to people that want to try that it's largely untested. Like the OSD came up, it should work, but I wouldn't rely on it on a professional shoot or anything like that yet.
Yeah, so really, folks who are on the firmware already, there's no path. And do you think there'll be a path for that, Junus? Or
yes.
There will. There is a hope for that, yeah.
There will. There's a technical solution, but getting it out there is going to take some amount of time.
Okay.
No process.
So it's not never, it's just for now. The situation is this. So you're going to make my video redundant once again. Thank you for that. I'll appreciate that one. So that's where we're at on the thing. Now, we've also got. Have you had a look at the Goggles 2 at all? Is that something you've looked at with DJI? Have you have you had any? I don't. You haven't. Have you got a set? I can't remember actually. I'm losing track.
I don't yet. I've
Okay.
looked at the firmware, but Brian, do you?
No, I haven't gotten a set
Okay.
yet either.
I think we both looked at the firmware a little bit already, so we have like, some idea of what's going on. But yeah, we haven't gotten a set. Well, first of all, do you go and buy the Avada? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be cool, but it's a toy at that point. We're probably not going to hack that too much, right? And yeah, so but we definitely have enough funds now that when the Goggles 2 and the O3 air unit ship, we can basically get the whole team set.
Yeah, and hopefully we're going to see a proper launch on that, aren't we, in the next month or two? That's what we're hoping, isn't it, right now? And this. We haven't really seen much on that side of things, so it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. It's a different animal. The Goggle is a different animal. You'll find that when you get to it yourself. I've got a set here, and in many ways, it's not a better product. That's the funny thing. It isn't guaranteed to be a better product. It's just the V2. Actually, when you spend a bit of time with both, I actually end up preferring the V2. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, it's a better goggle. It's not a better image. The image is very nice, but it's a better package overall. So we mentioned earlier. So, in my video, I touched on Betaflight, and I did it mostly around Betaflight. But this isn't all about Betaflight, and this is fully compatible, isn't it, with iNav and ArduPilot too?
Yeah, absolutely. And full HD mode support in both now. Big thanks to the RTOS development team who kind of got some code merged in this week. So on the latest development builds, you can get HD mode there as well.
And if you're running the dailies or the development builds, you've got it already ready to go. That's fantastic. What about FetTech? Someone's asking about FetTech. I don't know FetTech a lot myself. If it supports MSP,
I don't know.
It should be okay somewhat, shouldn't it?
I don't know anything about the nuances of KISS and KISS Ultra and whatever. I do know that if you are like a KISS Ultra enthusiast and you go on their Discord, the developer of KISS Ultra showed up in our Discord and worked with me and added support for DisplayPort to that build. Now, I don't know if it's in their mainline builds. I don't know the relationship between like KISS Ultra, KISS. There's some drama nonsense. I have no idea how any of that stuff works, but I do know that KISS Ultra in their Discord, there's a way to get it.
That's fantastic. Now, something I didn't say at the start of this, but I'm going to say it now, but I'll deal with the outcome of that later, which is, guys, don't super chat me on this stream tonight. You can, because I'm going to give all the money that you super chat tonight to the project anyway, but I would rather you went to the Open Collective website and did it that way, because that way YouTube isn't taking its scrape of it as well, and the guys are going to get more money. What I'll also do tonight is, because I want to make sure that we support this project as much as we can, is I'll make sure any of the ones tonight go over to the team as well, and I want to talk about that a bit more in a minute too. But yeah, if you want to support, don't super chat on YouTube. Let's not give them the money tonight. Give it to the project, okay? Give it to them, please, please, please. But Caroline's given a message. My goggles to root. USB device cannot be grabbed by the web page. Try Chrome Firefox. Right, hop on the Discord. Right, get on the Discord. We will, one of us. I'm there. Junus is there. Brian's there. But there's a huge group of people actually, and that's been really good the last week, isn't it? Actually, how many people have stepped up just to help folks on the Discord server? It's been amazing. It really has.
Yeah, we couldn't have managed without a bunch of people stepping up. Absolutely. I would shout out people, but then I'm afraid I'll miss out somebody. So I'm just going to for that reason. But
it has been, and there's lots of people there. I'm there. I probably spend more time on your one than I do my own, actually. But yeah, but please, if you've got a problem, Caroline, go on there. We will get you sorted out. Chances are, if you're on V1 goggles, you need to update the firmware, but get on there. That's most likely what it is. Someone said fix the audio, please. Has the 60 megabits a second mode disappeared? Do you want to address that? I could address that, or do you want to address that one, Junus, with regards to the packages?
Sure. So a handful of packages got pulled from the configurator simply because the author decided not to host them there anymore.
Okay.
And as they're not open source, or well, the source code is visible on GitHub, but they don't have a license attached,
Okay.
which means you can't actually use it. We're just unable to restore them as is. But several people are already working. I think actually didn't live audio for the V1 goggles already go live? Yeah, so we already have a replacement for the live audio thing. And yeah, the other packages are being worked on, not knowing when they'll arrive, but luckily we've been able to incorporate more developers into the process now. So it's not held up on one or two key people. So that's great.
Okay. I got a typo in the banner. Typical. It was there to see who noticed it. Okay. That's congratulations. You've won free support on the Discord server. I'll be there to help you. Why doesn't live audio work with the V2 goggles? I try to remember myself.
Right.
I can't remember.
Brian, do you want to have a go at this? I think you looked into it, no?
I mean, the short answer, which is like mostly a non-answer, is DJI didn't put it in. I don't have a deeper answer than that, really. So basically with the live audio, the feature actually exists in the code. The code is all there from DJI, from the factory, and they just hid the little switch to turn it on. So all you do is turn the little switch on to get that to work. And on the V2 goggles, it doesn't. For whatever reason, they didn't carry that feature.
That's interesting. Even on that, because there is actually, even because it's funny, you mentioned it earlier about the slots, and the DJI firmware setup is complicated, is probably the word I'll use for it, or interesting, but they're not quite identical, are they? It's easy to think that the DIY mode on the V2s is the same as the DIY mode on the V1s, but it isn't quite the case, is it?
It isn't. Well, because sort of part of the operating system is shared by the FPV drone mode and DIY mode. Okay. That's where things broke down. So basically, the code for live audio is mostly still there, actually on V2s, sort of in the GUI app, etc. But the kernel drivers, essentially, that actually deal with the audio stream are just completely missing on the V2s. And yeah, that'd be because they were working it for the FPV drone, reworking it, and it just probably got in the way, right?
Yeah, and we don't need that. Get rid. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Somebody could write a from the ground up new audio transmission system. There have been experiments, but I believe the latency was something like half a second. Okay. So somebody would need to actually optimize that a lot, but it's possible.
Okay, that's interesting. That is, someone's just told me I'm too low in audio now. You can never win, can you? There we go. I'll go up a little higher. The audio of this stream will be all over the place. Why? That's an interesting question. Why not expand the existing DJI OSD instead of implementing Canvas?
I think the short answer is why not both? I think this was something that we did first because people wanted it. I mean, I think that for a lot of things like tuning your flight controller, like using menus, there's always going to be a need to have the flight controller push data to the goggles. And that's why I did it. I fly mostly autopilot, and just being able to see all the tuning data, all the information that I need, is really critical. But I mean, why not extend the telemetry on the DJI system? That was no reason why someone couldn't, and there's no reason not to. I think that's an equally valid, and we could do some really cool stuff with that.
There was the catch, though, that at least when DJI implemented this, right, the infamous warning field wasn't actually available via a sort of telemetry method that they use.
Okay.
So it's not like DJI didn't care about warnings. At the time, at least, Betaflight wouldn't give the data to them. The short way to explain it is it was internal state of the OSD. It wasn't actually a piece of telemetry data, right?
Okay.
So, yeah. So that was it at the time. But right now, I think, somebody could go and extend the DJI system as well.
Cool. So, and that's been the really cool thing in it, is that this isn't just about OSD. It's easy to forget, okay, most people are going to do this to get canvas mode. Okay, I know it's not canvas mode before people jump up and down, but it's the term it's the term that's been coined and accepted for it. We all know it's MSP DisplayPort, but it is AKA canvas mode. And I know because there's this whole other OSD, which is officially canvas mode. It's Pixel OSD, and it's by FR. Is it by FR Sky off the top of my head? I think it is FR Sky, isn't it? And yeah, but it's known as that. But it's not just about OSD, because it's all of this other stuff as well that is possible with this, isn't it? It's custom code. It's what people want to do.
Yeah, it's a Linux computer strapped to your face. Technically, it can do anything. Like we could it'll take work, but we could set up a Linux window environment on there and have it be your PC basically, if we wanted to. And you know, obviously there's a lot of custom functionality that the community has been asking for, and that we can also maybe discuss. But the thing with all of that is there's 3 or 4 of the core team, and we can just only get so much done at a time.
Yeah, and I think that's been the challenge, isn't it, with getting it to here for it, you know, as you say, it was 2 weeks every 2 weeks, but there was a reason for that, and it was never in doubt. And look, there are times where I've pushed the line on live streams. You know, every now and again, Junus would poke me with a stick from a distance, just going, yes, that was close. There was stuff we would be talking about, but it's great to finally get it over the line as well. And look, from my point of view, you know, Junus is someone that I spoke to quite regularly. In fact, you know, we could have done a whole live stream on the DJI ASIC, couldn't we? Let alone where we've ended up with this. And it's amazing how much we've learned about the system in this period of time. It really is. You know, did I see someone the other day showing color fonts? I did actually see that. Yeah.
Yep. Well, so Brian's method actually allows for sort of full graphical fonts. So yeah, color fonts, a high resolution, etc. The thing there is that the sort of default Betaflight font is meant for analog. Brian, why don't you explain this? Why am I doing this? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, the fact is I started with what was there, right? That everyone wants their OSD to look like their OSD. So I started by converting the fonts from the analog chip that's used on flight controllers into graphics. And that leaves a lot on the table. Like, we're not using an analog font chip. All we're doing is copying bitmaps onto the screen. So colors, alpha transparency, you could have partially transparent OSD elements that are like half transparent, like translucent, whole 9 yards. Like, the sky's the limit. And this week we've seen a lot of people come through with some really cool fonts, full color, translucency, images. Like, I saw someone who had like an F-22 crosshair, like all kinds of stuff.
I've been shared some stuff as well, and it's just in a week. It's like in a week we're seeing this stuff coming through already. Someone just asked, where is it? Floorflyer asked, is HD video in going to be feasible on V1 or V2 goggles?
Sure. I mean, the DJI simulator app does it. Like, we know the hardware's there. We know the capabilities there. You can decode an H.264 video and display it to the screen. It's just a matter of getting the right video format and getting it onto the goggles. We have a lot of ideas on how to do this. It's just something we haven't had time to work on. If someone has experience in H.264 in video and wants to work on this, hit me up. I have a write-up of probably 80% of how to do it already.
Wow. I suppose this is your big problem now, is where you now put the resources you do have. Because, you know, the resources you have are you guys. You know, this isn't a company. This isn't a business. This is an open source project. And the work you guys are doing is amazing, and have done is amazing. But you've done all of this in your spare time. And I sometimes, you know, it's easy for us to always sit here and go, right, monkey, right, dance. We want something else from you now. Come on, give us something. Yeah, you guys are doing this in your free time. So, you know, have you got an idea of what you want to do next? Is there sort of a dev path, I should say, unofficially? You know, have you had an idea of what sort of direction you want to go?
On sort of the OS side, I mean, certainly, first of all, making sure everything's compatible with the latest firmwares, right?
Yeah.
And also making sure we can start routing those. I think those are sort of short-term goals. But after that, what I want to really do is a push for, let's say, developer engagement, right? Get some documentation down, make it easier for people to get on board, because right now we still have to sort of walk them through what you need to do to get set up, get running, etc. So for me, that's, I think, the next big priority, is to make documentation and so forth. What about you, Brian?
For me, it's font configuration and iNav. The community have really shown up with a ton of fonts. Now we have to figure out what's the best way to package them, to configure them, to really build like an ecosystem around that, right? Where people who build these really cool fonts have a way to publish them, have a way to get them in the hands of users, and where you can pick between them in a way that's easier than right now, where you kind of put stuff on the SD card and who knows what's up and so on and so forth. And then iNav. Right now, there are some issues with the way that the iNav OSD rendering works, just systemically. I'm working with the iNav development team. I think there's a solution where we change the way that iNav sends data through MSP, and where we're able to kind of fix the artifacts and the other issues that people are having that way.
Cool. That'll be good. Yeah, because I had to play with the fonts this week myself, and at the moment you've got to put them on the SD card, and they had to stay on the SD card. Actually, with the ones I was testing, it doesn't transfer. So, what are you thinking, Brian? A bit of a configurator separately for that? Yeah, something.
Yeah, I think we want to build this whole thing as a platform, right? It's about a community, and it's about being able to make things kind of general. So I think there's a way that we give people a nice way to put their fonts into packages, and then they can configure those with the configurator. And through doing that, we get the ability to configure other stuff too, right? Like if we make it in the configurator so that you can pick fonts from a list, or you can type in the name of the font and save that setting, boom, now we have settings for everything.
Yeah, that'd be really nice. That would be really nice. Is it possible to have the OSD in 16:9 format?
Yeah, sure. Ben, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Lumley, made a fake HD project in the last week. This is pretty cool too. It basically uses some heuristics, so some detection methods to figure out whether you're in the OSD or in the menus. And if you're in the OSD, it spreads out the elements. So they're full 16:9. You can have elements on the left, you can have elements on the right, you can have them on the top and the bottom. And I think especially for people who fly in 4x3 and kind of like to have their OSD in the gutters, it's like an ideal solution for them. So yeah, look into fake HD if you want that now. Longer term, we're working with all of the flight controller developers to kind of figure out, what's the best way forward for HD OSD overall. But that's a big project, and I wouldn't expect it anytime soon. So for now, fake HD.
And to elaborate on that maybe a little bit, like fake HD, why fake, and the difference with Betaflight. Maybe Brian, you should actually elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so basically, this whole MSP DisplayPort thing is interesting because all it is the flight controller tells the goggles to draw a character, an item from a font, at a location. That's it. That's all it does. So all these little icons, all these little things that you see, they're just characters in a font. They're just like letters. It's like wingdings, just like wingdings. And so because of that, each flight controller has chosen to send the OSD elements in a different way, and they each support a different set of grid sizes. Now, when HD0 came out, they went out to a bunch of flight controller developers and had a bunch of people work on these projects to basically say, what if we took the current OSD, which is 30 by 16, 30 wide by 16 high characters, and they said, why don't we make it 50 wide? Why don't we make it big? And iNav and ArduPilot that chose to implement that, and in Betaflight they didn't. They stuck with the conventional standard HD or SD format, and that's why things are different.
And what that effectively results in is that the characters are bigger, right?
Yep.
That's why Betaflight, the default, looks so big, quote unquote. And we can sort of make custom font and zoom out the characters, right? But then the spacing breaks because the grid on which the characters are placed is still fixed. So yeah, to sort of sum that up is Betaflight doesn't currently support a high resolution grid for that OSD. We're talking to the Betaflight devs on how to get this done in the best way. But yeah, meanwhile, you've got this fake HD option, then that sort of still makes it a lot better to use.
Interested. Question was asked just now, and it's one we've seen come up a few times actually, and I've just lost it. Where is it? Right, here he is. What are our thoughts on the distance limit? Now I saw this posted today because this is one people always talk about, isn't it? The 13.6 is it kilometers or 13.4 kilometers that we have on DJI?
I don't know if either of us have gone too deep on this, but I mean, yes. So to sum it up, it's got something to do with internal timeouts and the speed of light, right? I mean, just straight up, that's why it's so consistent. And tuning this parameter is not trivial. It's not, there isn't a 13.3 kilometers config somewhere. There might be internal parameters in the radio frequency RF baseband RTOS, real-time operating system. Yeah. So basically the sort of modem code. But we don't understand sort of the actual internals of that well enough to know where to go patch, what to patch, and sort of also what the consequences might be. So there are some ideas, some people have looked at it, but it's a tough one because it gets to the very sort of bottom of the stuff.
The stuff we don't, because this is the area heading into stuff we've spoke about in the past. We're heading down into the bellies of where no one has a lot of access on this system, isn't it? And that's the problem. And yeah, there's a lot of people who've seen Wes's video this week at 31K on the avatar system, which and someone said to me, would DJI be capable? I said absolutely. DJI's limit is not that the system has a problem. It's a artificial arbitrary limit that they've put in place, and I don't even think they've picked the number off the top intentionally. I think it's just they've set some arbitrary limit and it landed at that.
It's not necessarily even completely arbitrary. It might have something to do with the performance of sort of the repeat packets, or they're not repeat packets, but so it might have sort of performance tuning consequences as well. It depends.
It's I know there's a lot of people who are really interested in that one. Just looking down the chat, how big are the chances on this project leading to a new third-party VTX system for DJI? Unlikely, not going to happen from my point of view. I'll let you guys have your own answer on that, but
I mean, no. I mean, maybe like being able to access the firmware, if there's some super genius group out there trying to replicate it, might help them. But no, it works on proprietary hardware. It works with proprietary software. Replicating the functionality on other hardware would cost more than buying it. Is the fact of the matter, like in terms of making a one-to-one clone system.
Someone asked, and this is another one, obviously. Now, I did talk about this in the video but it's probably a good one for you, Brian, is OSD in DVR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the big problems with kind of this idea is that the goggles aren't very powerful. From a CPU perspective, they're an old ARM Cortex CPU. We only have access to one core. And so being able to take the video, decode it, add the OSD, and then re-encode it on the goggles it's not going to be practical. The only reason the OSD works at all right now is that the display controller actually draws the OSD in hardware. So the CPU isn't blending the OSD with what's behind it. That's being done in hardware by the display controller. What we can do is take the data that builds the OSD, so the MSP data, or even just a readout of each frame or something, and write that out to the SD card, and then you can produce the video and re-encode it with a workflow on your PC or your mobile device or whatever later.
Yeah, and that's very much like the SRT file system that they're doing, and that's probably why they did it in the first place, because of the same issues. And it's funny, it's a problem that they've sort of solved with lack of CPU in the goggles too, isn't it? You know, they've added plenty of horsepower in these things now, to say the least. And it is actually going to be quite interesting, actually, that topic. And what's not related to this is, obviously, we've got the Avatar, which is designed to be used on these, but they've added backwards compatibility to the V2s. But obviously, they've not got that extra horsepower in those goggles to be able to leverage, have they? So they must be doing. There must be some form of limitations on the V2s on the Avatar that we don't fully understand yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the head tracking AR mode would necessarily perform too well.
Yeah.
So that would be an example. So yeah, like Brian said, there's it's all CPU. There's no GPU on the V2s. Actually, I don't know if the goggles too have what you would consider a GPU. I don't actually know if we put that out yet. But yeah, it's likely there are limitations there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something we'll probably understand more over time as well. Is anyone planning on working or started working on the SRT files? We pretty much just spoke about that now, Minster Grim. Let me just go back up to the chat a second before we carry on.
We did have a mention of access, and I saw a question about, is it possible to patch the RTOS?
Okay.
And the answer is yes, we can patch it. Technically, we can patch it at runtime. We can patch it on the flash, but that doesn't really matter. It's a lot harder to patch though, because it's this one big binary blob of a real-time operating system. It's not like Linux where you've got the kernel, you've got applications, etc. Right? But it is possible. It is possible.
50 megabits audience mode, hardware or software limitation.
Software.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I wouldn't have expected there to be any reason they couldn't do it. It's just probably again a choice they've made. It's funny, someone mentioned just now about the OSD fonts, and I'm using, in my video I showed about they're really nice actually. The fonts by, I don't know how to say their name. His name, Kniffer or Kaifa. He's got the little round dots. You know the one I mean. It looks fantastic, but I can't.
I think it's
Knifa, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
he's there in the chat.
Yeah. And they were actually already posting the other day screenshots from an offline renderer of Msp Osd. So they're already working on the PC side of that. So nice. Shout out to Knifa and Ben Lumley, who have been doing a lot of stuff around the OSD. Yeah.
What someone's asked, Vladimir, what's the progress on a custom UI in goggles, like custom OSD draw with proper fonts without fixed spaces, size, grid, or custom metric charts?
No progress. We've talked about it a lot in terms of what we would like to do. There's different decisions to be made there, trade-offs in terms of performance versus developer accessibility. Versus how forward-looking it is in terms of other future goggles that might want to run it. But yeah, it's definitely something we've talked about. Personally, I've settled on I think what I call Lua OSD.
Yeah.
So the idea being that sort of anybody can develop easily these Lua widgets based on the telemetry stream. And then, the user can install a bunch of widgets.
I like that.
Then configure it. But it's an idea. Whether we'll get around to it, hopefully somebody will show up and be like, here, I'm doing it. That would be the best option.
And again, you've said that a few times. So clearly you guys are open to getting more devs on board from the sounds of it.
100%. I mean, that's the whole ethos. It's an open platform.
Yeah, and that's where you're at the moment. Now, I'm going to take this as an opportunity because I want to get your shilling done at this moment in time. So I'm going to hop over to the desktop for a minute. Now, for everyone who hasn't seen it, the window is down here, okay? Now, when I do this, guys, we won't be able to hear you for 2 seconds, so I'll come back to you in literally 10 seconds. But I'm going to hop over to the desktop here. Now, this is the configurator. This is Fpv.Wtf. It is now on the proper link. So it was on a testing link. Today it's live, it's ready to go. You can use it here. This takes you through the whole process. The first thing you need to do is the root. And look, the real big one here I want to stress is this project is open source. It is free. But please support the project if you're going to use this, whether it be this, ExpressLRS, I'm going to say it, Betaflight, all of the others. If you're using the software, please consider making a donation. But you can also do it via their Open Collective page as well, which is here. There's a link to it here. You can do a one-off donation. You can do a recurring donation. And for me, what's really important with this is they've delivered us this project basically free of charge from our point of view as users, right? So we're quids in. We've got the goggles. You can go on the website, get it done. But it's not just about today. It's about the future. It's about the V2s, goggles too. It's about the O3E unit around the corner. It's about the Avata. They can't do everything, right? They can't look at every DJI drone. They can't look at every product on the market. But the expertise that they've shown here in this side of things, if we want it to continue, we need to support them. So please, please, please hop over and check out the link to the Open Collective page, or do it via the configurator when you do it. And we should be back up, gentlemen, now. Don't worry. So sorry, that was me getting the thing. But, you know, for me, this is about as well what's in the future, you know, the being able to keep doing this, because we know there's something else coming, don't we? We know there's something around the corner. Although you've just given so much more life to the current system, it's incredible. In fact, I'd argue today is really the best day to go and buy DJI FPV as a result of this. There's never been a better time to get this system because it's not end of life. Everything is still available. And now you have full OSD. Now, we don't know how long that's going to be for. I don't mean the OSD, but the availability. But today, I think today you have just made DJI the best overall system.
I think we find that flattering, Ian. Thank you. I will add, actually, to the donations context that we just move on to Open Collective, meaning that all the donations going forward are sort of transparent, right?
Okay.
It's visible what's happening. Previously, it was sort of coming in to buy me a coffee and just being under my personal control. So it's moved on to the team, and you know, I don't know if these things might stay like this forever, but at least the current core team has committed, you know, we don't want money for the work.
No.
We want to get new gear. Maybe we want to, if there's enough money around, maybe we want to set some bounties to actually get some freelance developers in or something.
Okay.
But, you know, we're not doing it or even shilling for donations because we want the money. We're doing it so that we can enable more, so we can get more gear for more developers, and yeah, that's sort of the ethos around that, and why we moved to Open Collective, so it's all very transparent, etc.
Yeah, and ExpressLRS is in the Open Collective as well. You know, it's another project I use a lot of, and we try to support through that one as well. And look, my method of doing it is I try to do it every time there's like a new big release on ExpressLRS. For me, I do it as we move forward. You know what I mean? Rather than just dropping a big one in and forgetting about it. Every time there's a new big release, I'll go and put $20 on or $30 or something like that and try to just keep it going in. And, you know, for me, it's about helping you guys being able to do it, because everything you've done so far you done with your own gear. I remember, Junius, you just taking apart I remember you took did you buy the V2s originally? Which ones did you have originally?
Yes, I did. I actually bricked my
V1s
for a while.
Did you unbrick them in the end? Did you?
I did
yes.
unbrick them. I unbricked them a week after, I believe, I bought the V2s. And it was Felix. So, you know, we've shouted out all kinds of people, but I should definitely shout out Felix Domke, aka DM Bing. He is a legendary reverse engineering person, and he is the one that got us in to be able to do this root thing. And he's also the one that helped me unbrick my goggles. He's also the one that will probably help us, you know, get to a root for the new versions, right?
Nice.
We do a lot of this research ourselves, but he's a true legend. But yeah, so we do these. Were, in fact, donated by a very kind Discord member, M. Bundy.
Bundy, yes.
And you can see what state they're in. Clearly, I don't fly them. But other than that, yes, I think so far we've done it all on our own gear.
He's a legend in his own right, is M. Bundy. In fact, he even has his own bot. So
we're retiring that tonight.
Oh, is that tonight? Is it? Okay. So, but yeah, and this is something else I want to mention, guys. There is a fantastic Discord server around this project as well, and it's not only just somewhere you can go and get support for the route and the hack and the problems, but it's actually some fantastic people there, and look, there's some of the cleverest people I know in FPV, and I know a lot of people in FPV, and trust me, these guys are doing stuff that we were only dreaming of 12, 18 months ago. And if you're not on it, there is a link to that Discord server in the description of the video. I'm sure someone will post it in the chat now in a minute as well. Do make sure you're on there. If you're doing this, do make sure you're there. Now, if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat. I'm watching. I can see them here now. Pardon me. I'm just looking up, see what people are saying. Someone just said they got V2s this week in Vista. That's great. Have I missed it? Does the OSD transfer to OSD? No, it does. DVR, sorry. Does the OSD transfer to DVR? No, it doesn't. Not at this time. Maybe in the future there might be a way of having that data onto the SD card. It's unlikely to be recorded on the video stream ever. Is probably a fair term to use, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, I mean, not directly out of the goggles, but I think there's an easy future where you can burn it in on your PC or maybe even on a mobile device. Someone just has to go right in. So
yeah.
We even had a chat with the developer of WTF FPV, who actually has been around in the background and is working on a new version, if you know the video out application. Yeah. So that might, for example, integrate it and make it super simple.
I think the big one people often want is to be able to look at the GPS coordinates if something goes wrong. And it's not even necessarily about having the data on the OSD. It'd be great if there would be a way of, if you're playing back and the goggles just read the OSD data, in fact, off the file on the SD card. It's about that. I need that date. I want to know where it is.
I cannot remember who on Discord suggested this to me. I was not intelligent enough to come up with that idea, but someone suggested that to me the other day, and I am probably going to work on that. It's super easy, it makes sense, and like that's pretty cool. We could just in the playback just play the stream back into the goggles.
For me, that's what it's about. What you want is to be able to go back and go, you know, I remember I lost a quad. I spent 4 hours hunting for this quad, in fact, here on a beach, crashed in the mud, and unfortunately I didn't have an SD card in recording. If I could have just seen where it went down, I'd have had like I'd have probably been 20 minutes finding the quad, not 4 hours. And with GPS coordinates and stuff like this, it just makes life a little bit easier. It does. So yeah.
Actually, I would say let's even dump it to the internal flash, because I've done the exact same thing and not have my SD card with me, and I never found that quad. So yeah.
Someone's asked, will there be support for Safari browser? Does it work with web USB on other sites? CRFS, ExpressRS, for example, works fine.
Does it? That's a good question. Honestly, can't answer immediately. Like I know we use the web serial standard. We use the web USB standard. So if Safari supported it, it should work. But I'll make a note of it to look into it.
Yeah. Yeah, at the moment it's pretty much Chrome, isn't it? Chrome is... I don't know anyone who doesn't use Chrome these days. It's funny. I've been around a long time in IT and everything, and I've seen the flash through of all the browsers over the years, right back to the crazy ones. But yeah, Chrome seems to be it for everyone now, doesn't it? Can I just... Sorry.
Oh, yeah, it works on anything Chromium based. So Edge, Chrome, Brave,
Someone's asked, okay, can you discuss the stability and reliability of the system and bind button fail safe? Is this as stable as stock firmware? Do you feel this could be trusted for professional flying? So I'll give my experience first of all. In my experience, it's worked every time. I've had... I think, one occasion in the past where there was an issue, but on the current release, it's been absolutely solid. The goggles take a little bit longer to boot. Other than that, you're just seeing it boot on my V1s. You sort of they boot, and then you see the OSD kick in, and it. I've had it once or twice, sort of go back to not and back. It almost like it rebooted itself very quickly and come back.
I fixed that. That was a very old bug, and I fixed it. So actually,
fixed.
the boot is now as fast as it normally is, and yeah, we've solved all kinds of different stability issues that came up. Right now, it's stable. What we can promise you is if you install a package that a developer puts on the system, that won't create any instabilities, right? It's an open system. You can have weird apps on the Android App Store that do weird things, right? So there's that. I would say the core of it is pretty stable. There is some edge cases where in the field you could possibly lose WTF functionality. That's due to the multiple slot system, because we keep one slot clean. So if there's a DJI bug that switches slots, you might lose the functionality in the field. That's also on my to-do list for sort of the next iteration to never have that issue. But yeah, no, it should be stable, and the safe mode should also sort of help you out even if something isn't stable.
Yeah. So it's with confirming on that. So at the moment, when you guys flash, there are 2 slots in the DJI FPV system, isn't there? Basically 2 memory locations is the easiest term to use, and it boots from one or the other. At the moment, you only flash onto one. So if the goggles for some reason had a reboot and they decided to boot into the other slot, you would lose the OSD, you would lose the root and the functionality, wouldn't you? And you just go home and do it again. Just so people understand.
Yes, presently that's correct. You don't even need to do it again. The configurator will just tell you slots are switched. Let's go back. And but that is the case. And I want to what did I want to add on top of that? Thought escaped my mind right now.
No problem. If it comes back, we'll take it. Let me just reading out because there was another one.
Oh yes, I realized when you can switch. So we install into slot 1, and that's the default. In case something goes wrong, the system will default back to slot 1. But if you power cycle your device really rapidly, DJI essentially thinks that, you know, I tried booting but it failed, so we must try slot 2 now. So that is essentially the case where you can temporarily lose functionality. Either the air side or the ground side could do that, and then, you know, the OSD wouldn't fully work. But it's pretty rare. The configurator fixes it for you automatically, and there will be an update in future so that that's not a thing anymore at all.
No, that's good news. Yeah, you know, it's because you can get that, can't you? If the goggles boot in the wrong mode, you do it, you get a warning in the configurator anyway, don't you? It tells you that something is wrong, tells you that something is up, so you can go and do that. Just reading down, someone said they had it. There was another question. Is it? Someone asked, and thank you for the super chat, Bannister. Is it possible to do the home point like in the DJI FPV or Avata? For long range, we lose the quad on the way home, not knowing where we took off from. So that's almost the AR, augmented reality home point that sort of flashes over where you are.
I mean, is it possible? Absolutely. Someone could. The technology's there for someone to implement that. They would just have to go out and do it. Obviously, with just the existing MSP DisplayPort on Betaflight, you can get the home arrow. And then on iNav, I think you can get iNav radar even works with the DisplayPort.
This is a super interesting question from Mr. Anderson, and I struggle to say that without going into the Matrix voice, because the term is in my head forever. However, would it be possible to upgrade the V2s to 103 in one slot and keep 01, 0200 in another slot? So actually have 2 different firmware versions on the slots.
It should be possible, but I couldn't tell you what could go wrong because, well, no, because the slots sort of, there's 2 slots for the firmware, but some stuff is still shared. Your user
Right.
config is shared, your black box is shared. So that might create issues. But there's no reason to, right? So since as we found out, the latest version actually works with WTF OS. So I don't actually see a reason to do that. Hopefully we'll be able to do like more systematic testing of that to say to everybody that yes, it's good to go. You should use it. But yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose this really, look, anyone who buys V2s today standalone, as far as we're aware, you're fine. The real issue is people who are getting V2s with the Avata. Your V2s with the Avata are coming with a sort of intermediate firmware version that is not routable at this moment in time, so you're stuck with it. But the guys have already said there is something in the works. It's a matter of time. It's not if, it's just when at this moment in time. Just patience on that one. Hopefully there'll be a solution in the not too distant future. Just check it down. Thank you so much. Follow up. If you lose the Msp OSD, would turning the DJI custom OSD bring the functionality back? Basically, yes. So is because the configuration difference, it would be fine. So from my point of view, if your goggles were to reboot into the slot without the functionality, yeah, if you went back in and turned the DJI OSD back on, you would just carry on as it was originally. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Sorry, true. Yeah.
How much Meat City's interesting. So how much reverse engineering is possible on the system? Do you have a debugger dumping the DJI ASM as it runs?
You could. I mean, so we have root on the Linux side, right? So you could do whatever you can do in Linux with root. Then we have the ability to, you'll see everywhere, there's a busybox dev mem command. We have the ability to just write stuff into RAM. So that's how you get to other parts of the system, the RTOS, everything else. Those you would probably struggle to debug. We don't have like core level debugging. We haven't really looked into it. So no JTAG, no like no hardware SWD kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But from a software perspective, I mean, it's pretty complete, the level of access that we have to the system.
And I've just remembered what the question was earlier I wanted to find. Can we change the DJI boot logo?
Not while it boots, because of what we talked about earlier. We can patch it in memory once it's loaded, but we have to be able to get there first.
Right, so everything we do is after the boot process is completed, basically. And you inject as you go through that.
Yeah. That would require probably some kind of hardware modding to enable. And at that point, you know, it's probably not worth the effort. So yeah. I actually noticed a question that came up on one of your streams earlier, and that is related in terms of, can we use the RF hardware to talk to Wi-Fi or even, you know, cell phones?
Okay.
Hypothetically, yes. Practically, not going to happen. But luckily, at least on the V2 goggles, we could just use the USB port to add a Bluetooth dongle or a Wi-Fi dongle.
Yeah.
It's another area of research. There's some software obstacles there, but just to address that one, because I have noted it actually from one of your previous streams.
Yeah. It is interesting how much, you know, there's a lot of interest in the deeper RF side. And I think the one thing it's always worth mentioning, and we've spoken about this before, Jonas, is that, you know, there is only so much we know or can control down at the very deep level of what DJI are doing. We have probably a better understanding than we ever imagined we would of what they're doing. You know, the great thing with the whole Walksnail thing caused everyone to dig in so deep into what was going on. It's amazing how far we understand what DJI are doing, but that doesn't mean we can fully control it either, does it? That's the problem.
Yeah, not quite. I mean, the RF side is probably the biggest lack or obstacle is a lack of tools available publicly to work on the DSP cores, right? It's just not available publicly. I've searched high and low, tried sketchy Chinese forums, sketchy Chinese merchants. I was ready. So the SIVA DSP toolbox is sort of the thing we would need to even start.
Yeah.
doing anything weird with the SDR, and it's just not out there publicly.
No, and it's a shame the Walksnail one isn't compatible. While similar, not quite.
It's actually very similar DSPs, but yeah, same story overall. Yeah.
St. Kennedy, I don't know on that one. Hop on to one of the Discords. It's not really related to this, but someone, if you hop onto my Discord or one of the others, will try and answer that question for you. Is in the just catching down on the chat. Is it someone's asked, is it possible to change the color of the OSD? Yes. We've discussed this earlier. Absolutely. And there are versions of this already in the works. People are doing it already. This Brian dude looks like... I'm trying to read it from you. It's a comment on you, Brian. It's not bad, don't worry. Brian, you look like Will Forte. You take it? Yeah,
I'll take it.
Colourful OSD for the win, absolutely. What's the easiest way to have video out to an Android device from the V2 goggles? Yeah, that's the simplest way, isn't it?
Video out? Yeah, WTF.com.
Yeah.
There may be some issues with WTF OS and video out. That's also on my to-do list to look into.
Yeah.
Some people have had issues, others I think it might have worked. So I'm not quite clear what's going on there. Anybody that needs it, just hold down the bind button, put into safe mode, and then you can use video out, right?
And when you do that, do you want to just explain that so we all know? So there is a built-in safe mode in the system.
Yes. So yes, if you hold the bind button either on the goggles or on the Vista, airside, during the boot up, it will just skip loading WTF OS altogether. We leave some tiny bits enabled so that you can then plug into the PC and then be able to debug. But otherwise, it disables everything. So yeah, if anything blows up for some reason, you can use that. And or such as a case such as video out, where it might have issues right now. So when you need that, just boot into safe mode. So just bring something small so you can access the goggles. And you wait to hear 3 short beeps from the goggles. There's no indicator on the air side yet. We should look into that actually.
Okay, and can you disable the OSD waiting messages? I recall you can now, can't you? If you're, say, flying a quad that's not set up for it, you can... Is it the back button you press? I'm trying to remember what it is now. Is it...
It's a configuration option. Check out the README.
Yeah.
It'll teach you how to apply configuration options, and you can just disable that. The main reason why it's there is so that when people first install, they know that everything worked. You can turn it off and then it's gone forever.
Flystyle FPV, does 60 megabits mode make better video? I'll give my opinion first and I'll let the guys have theirs. No, I didn't really see any benefit. And there are a few downsides. The link seemed a bit all over the place at times. It wasn't quite as stable as I was used to using it. I didn't see any image quality improvement that was worth considering for the 10 megs. I don't know what your guys' opinion is on it.
I mean, I think it delivers marginally better video quality. I think it's like hard to argue against that, I guess. Like you're using the same encoding parameters at a higher bit rate. But I think my main concern and the issues that I've seen with it are the OSD link becomes substantially less reliable. It starts dropping OSD packets a lot more often and a lot sooner. And so for that reason, I kind of shy away from it. Obviously, if you prioritize video quality above all else, maybe, but I don't actually see a difference. So
some people have said that under certain conditions, that last 10 megabits makes a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not magic-free bandwidth. Where basically DJI just has 10 megabit in reserve for sort of all the telemetry and then also the repeats. Let's call it that. And so yeah, if you just max out the encoder, go to 60 megabit, then the system's going to struggle elsewhere. People have noted latency spikes, and I think even worse penetration, which kind of makes sense because the repeat packets would have a hard time in that situation. But you know, if you want to try it and see if it works for you. But yeah, those are the caveats.
Yeah. Someone's asking, this is an interesting one, actually, a Marcus Poltrak, and I've seen this before. Would it be possible to fix the DJI issue on video in going black or showing the DJI logo?
Yes. So actually, there was some early tweak for it, but I'm not sure if that ever got published. But yes,
Okay.
it's possible. I believe it boils down to disabling automatic PAL and NTSC detection.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because I think.
Yeah, there's a set of configuration registers in the analog input chip, and you can just manipulate them. The data sheet's online. You can manipulate them however you want. And yeah, I think the problem there was the auto PAL NTSC meant that it looked for the front door, would that be, for the timing? And if you get rid of that, then just do snow.
Cool. That makes sense. Someone has asked, would it be possible to get it working with the avatar system? No, not lightly. That's an entire rewrite, not just a hack of software, is it? And it's more than that. It's hardware as well.
Hardware actually.
It's not far off, is it? But
no, they should be compatible. Like they use similar DSPs from the same IP vendor, although Walksnail uses something that is technically meant for image processing. I think they also use it. They use it for RF. But no, hardware-wise, actually, you know, it could be done. But that would mean Walksnail publishing their spec and then somebody being able to implement it on DJI side with the tools that I already said we don't have, right? So, but technically, I think hardware-wise, it should be doable, actually.
Yeah, selected by coincidence or not, who knows? But the very similar off-the-shelf intellectual property components to put into their chips. And so it's like the same recipe, but the tools are all hidden and secret.
Yeah. Yeah. Just catching up on the thing. I've been pinged on the chat as well. Yeah, I'm looking at that one. I'm getting pinged. We're getting pinged at every angle as well, isn't it?
Yeah, no worries. We had some community members volunteer to gather some questions. I was just pointing out that you can pick up your there as well. Yeah.
Let's have a look. The 13 kilometers question, guys, we have answered it earlier. Yes, there's a possibility. It needs some more work, and if anyone wants to get involved, I think please do reach out to the devs, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the harder and more complicated ones. You have to go really deep into the RF processing, but it's certainly possible. But I wouldn't say it's on our roadmap right now. That sense.
OBS has just decided to move one of the screens, so I'm gonna just check. I'm not sure why it's done it to Brian. Brian has shrunk. Not sure why Brian has shrunk, but it's decided to shrink you, Brian. And let me just have a look. This is Skype, unfortunately, and I did have this problem earlier when I was setting the stream up. For some reason, it every now and again moves around. And there we go, and it's gone the other way. 2 seconds, guys. I'm not sure. It's a weird quirk of Skype for some reason that it moves the little screens around that you bring people in on. I don't quite know why it does it. We'll try there. Your normal size again now, Brian. Skype in 2022. Brian's a giant. Right. Okay. Let's just have a look through the questions. If anyone who's watching the stream has any, please do put them in. Let me just close the box that YouTube is telling us to insert an ad right now. No, we don't want to do that, YouTube.
I see one about a question of disarming 5 seconds, or sorry, stopping the recording after 5 seconds after disarming, which is something I would love, or even 10 seconds, because you miss all the crashes, right? You have to disarm. So yeah, that's something we would like to have. It shouldn't be too hard, but again, like somebody has to go into it, figure it out. I think the auto start recording mod that was available previously, and then a few people are also looking to replace, might fix that as long as you're happy with it, starting as soon as you plug in your quad. So then there is no auto disarm until you actually power off the quad.
That'd be cool. That'd be a really good feature, as you say. Yeah, the amount of times, as you say, you miss the actual crash as a result, don't you? Just reading down. Would it? A question actually from myself, with regards to NACO, FCC, and 1200. Is this something that could be done through the configurator?
Sure. Yeah, why not?
I'm just thinking it'd be a nice thing to have as a single, simple solution, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I think that's I think that package would be like 5 lines of code. Good idea.
Yeah. Just it'd be really nice when if you just boom, 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 hit the button, it's done.
Yep, should be doable. And thanks for pointing that out, actually.
There was a question I just saw just now. That was the OSD, the recording one. Any chance of recording on board the Vista unit?
Yes, no, maybe. Yeah, it has less RAM, so it can't do a sort of second high-resolution encode like the AU does.
Okay.
The onboard flash is very limited, so you wouldn't get much recording. Theoretically, perhaps it might be possible to plug in a USB-C memory stick and record onto that.
Okay, that'd be cool.
But the air side, unlike the Goggles V2, don't seem to support USB OTG, meaning that they can be the USB host, so you could plug in something. It might be possible to get that working, or it might be a hardware issue. We don't know. So yes, no, maybe.
Here's a super interesting one, and actually it's a really good one. I wish I'd have thought of this. Can we fix DJI's binding issues with regards to swapping between the modes on the goggles? Because it's horrible. And the worst thing is, actually, before you guys answer, it doesn't actually lose the bindings. It loses one of the bindings. But if you bind the one back, they all magically return. What is going on there?
So basically, well, first of all, why do you lose the bind? There is only one place to store sort of the binding ID. Okay. So simply they just smash over each other, right? And I'm trying to remember what the trick was as to why you only have to restore it once. I think it has something to do with the bind ID being the goggles ID. So once the Goggles ID is set, all the vistas will automatically pick it up. But I'm sort of constructing a narrative here. I'm not entirely sure. In terms of fixing that automatically, yes, entirely possible. And somebody actually looked up essentially what needs to happen. But none of the core team have a DJI FPV drone.
No.
So somebody with a DJI FPV drone and a DIY system, and I would say basic Linux scripting experience, I think hop onto our Discord, we'll tell you what needs to happen. And yeah.
Yeah, because it's always been a horrible solution, isn't it? It's been that whole dual slot thing is horrible.
Yes. And yeah, somebody that wants to get their hands dirty, has a little bit of Linux skills, and has both devices, just join us. Yeah.
And it's amazing we're able to sit here and talk about fixing all of DJI's mess ups. It's crazy, really, isn't it?
I've got them unpaid developer for them, basically.
You'd love to know, wouldn't you, what we know they know about this. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you know, there are things we know, and
we saw some logs on the servers. Basically, the gist of it is when we released Margarine, there was a log containing the words attack verification in Chinese.
Nice.
So they definitely know. Yeah.
It's incredible, isn't it? You know, and it's going to be a really interesting period because we are in a transition, whether we want to be or not, and we're heading towards what's next. And as always with DJI, we don't know, do we, even if there's any more OSD on what's coming next. There's been no hints of they could very literally launch the same product again, just improved image quality with the same limitations, couldn't they?
Yes, likely. Yeah, we don't really have any insight into what they're planning for the new air units. I would imagine it's broadly similar in
Yeah.
terms of SD and stuff like that. Yeah, but we don't know.
Um, just catching up down on the chat. If there's any questions, guys, please do put them in before we wrap this one up, because I don't know how long the guys want to go on for. We've been going nearly an hour and a half, so we've done well so far. Now, from my point of view, is there anything you guys want to talk about? Is there anything you want to highlight or anything in this while we wait for some questions to come in?
Did I remember to thank also all the translators that helped us? Chris actually managed to pull together about 24 hours before launch
Wow.
full translations for, let me check the list, for German, English, Spanish, French, Italian, Dutch, 2 different Portuguese variants, Russian, Swedish, Turkish, and Chinese. So
Okay.
huge shout out to everybody that's been helping with them. I won't try to butcher their usernames on stream, but we're
Sure.
very, very thankful, and especially them pulling it together in the last 24 hours, basically, or
Yeah.
not quite, but just before that.
Yeah, it was a crazy period that couple of days as well. There was so much going on with the testing, and I know, Brian, you pushed a bunch of stuff in like the last 2 days. There was all sorts. Junus pushed a load of stuff. You did a load of stuff. It was crazy.
Yeah, we were stable a week ago, but then we had a lot of nips and tucks that we wanted to get to if we could, and we did. And yeah, Brian made a lot of progress, actually. Yeah.
Someone asked a question just now, and I said actually it's quite a good one. Ability to switch from 50 to 25 megabits mode without having the ear unit connected. That would be a nice one, because you get stuck, don't you, at the moment if you've left it in 50.
Someone is already working on that.
Cool.
But again, it'll be out when it's out. Anything I say somebody is working on, that's all you know. It's somebody is working on it. But
Yeah.
yes.
Cool. I just joined. Any support for that stupid firmware we can't roll back in the future? I have 3 goggles and 2 are updated to the year. Hopefully there will be a solution for the newer firmware versions in the future. It's not no. The words the guys used earlier was, it's not if, it's when, but just give them some time. Is it possible to support with PayPal? Is there a PayPal donation for the project?
Not for the team, especially now that we moved things onto sort of, Open Collective and the entire team being in control of that. I mean, if somebody really wants to do a significant donation, of course, get in touch and, we'll figure something out. But yeah, there's not a public link, because Open Collective means it's in control of the team rather than, any individual, which we trust everybody on the team, but we still want it to work like that.
Yeah. Test pilot Ian, any chance of a form of HDMI input? This sort of was questioned earlier, wasn't it? Digital input, not easy.
Well, I mean, you could plug in a capture card via USB and write drivers for it, but that I don't think that's what the people are asking for necessarily. You could do it, but it's a lot of work probably. Yeah.
I think you answered this one earlier, Brian, but CB Runner has asked, is Betaflight working on HD OSD rather than having to use fake HD? So is Betaflight, the dev team, working on, I know you said they're all working on improving the OSDs anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak too much for them. I know that we're working on what the future of HD OSD looks like for MSP DisplayPort, whether that's the exact current HD OSD thing or not. Not so sure.
Have you guys flown the Avatar? Such a nightmare at the moment with these damn names.
Not yet. No, neither of us have gotten them yet. It was we actually considered buying an Avata for the team. Maybe I would get it first, but then I would pass it on, etc. But we were just all so busy with the release, it just didn't make sense. It was a distraction. So yeah, that's that.
It's a good product. There's no question about it. You know, from my point of view, the product's actually very good. It's not particularly special, but actually it does what it does very well, and that is a small cinematic drone. What it isn't is a drone people should be flying 13 kilometers away. Yet that's what we're seeing. You know, really, what it's best for is low, fast, tight spaces flights. You want to get some real nice cinematic FPV. It's probably the simplest and easiest way to get great looking cine whoop FPV. Unfortunately, what we're starting to see is people go, why can't I fly at 10 kilometers and at 200 meters high? And you can, but if the wind takes it, then it is what it is, you know.
I happen to think DJI made an excellent product. Like, it's not for us, it's not for the hardcores, right? But as long as we're not gatekeeping, this is going to bring a lot of new people into the hobby.
Yeah.
And it is a brilliant product, unlike the Potato, which was...
Yeah. And that's the thing with the Potato. It did everything badly. What struck me about the Avata as soon as I flew it, it's really good fun at what it does. It's really good. And it does the job. And I just get it. I think they did it very well. And, you know, they should be credited for it because it is a very good product. ETA for live audio in the Goggles Fusion 2. It's not as simple as that. It's basically, what was the term you used, Brian? Is it unlikely not going to happen, isn't it? Yeah.
I think Brian was vigorously nodding.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the case. I spotted a couple of questions about remote controllers, RCs, radios.
Yeah.
One, could you use the RCV2 to fly the DIY system? And this is actually funny, like a local retailer asked me this a long time ago, like, could you make this happen since you're working on this? Because we would sell so many more and the RCV1 isn't available. Short answer, we tried the easy things, basically forcing the pairing IDs, etc., and it didn't work. Might be possible, but it would require modifying the RC firmware. Somebody else asked if it's running Android on the RC, and I don't think it is. I think it's just an RTOS. I might be. Oh, I haven't looked into it too much. And what I would like to add to that is I do have a sort of dream of a few years down the road. I would like to see OpenTX or HTX RCs that drop the silly little screen, and we can bring it up on the goggles, right?
Nice.
Like, I think RC wise, that is killer. We should do that. We should let you navigate the menus via your actual radio, and I think that would be killer. But this is definitely, at least the part where the screen is shared, is definitely years off. Maybe we can get to navigating the goggles menus earlier.
Yeah. It's as you say, there's a lot. The frustration with DJI at times is often the incompatibility between products. We'd love to see, you know, everyone wants that little remote with the DJI. I actually like the big black remote. It's just not easy to get now. That's the problem with it. And yeah, we're going to have to see what happens with these remotes. I can't remember if we answered this one. A video in full screen? I mean, I'm guessing that's AV in. Is AV in not full screen? I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've used that.
Maybe there's a... Does it support 16:9? Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I can't remember.
I think we did look into, so as Brian mentioned, we can manipulate the registers on the analog in chip.
Yeah.
So, and I think there is also a 16:9 mode. Somebody was researching this lately, but yeah, I don't know for sure. I've got a question that our sort of helpers collecting questions are keep pointing me back to, and is somebody was asking, why don't we charge $1 or $2, and that, you know, we would get so much more done. You know, it's still a hobby project for us, right? We have jobs or I freelance, etc., and we don't want to, you know, commit to give us this much money, we'll do this much work, right? That would just kind of ruin it, I guess, for the gang. Now, yes, like I mentioned, we do want to start doing bounties if there's enough money to bring in some freelance developers, etc. But yeah, it's not about, you know, paying for our time. We do it because we want to do it. We want to do it for ourselves, the community. It's just fun. So yeah, we don't want to charge and have there be this direct expectation of work,
Yeah.
right? But you are able to support it. The donations are now integrated into the root process if you want to. Somebody also actually asked earlier, I believe, if they should donate through the configurator or on Open Collective, and it's the same thing. So yeah, but yeah, that's that. We don't feel like we're selling you a product. We feel like we're giving you this anyway because we want to, and then just support, you know, the effort in terms of hardware and so forth.
Yeah, and look, it's for me, as I said earlier, for me, the donations is about, you know, you've already delivered. It's about now supporting you for what we can do next. And I said, and you're never going to give everyone everything they want. You know, I've also got to be careful that, you know, we all want a list of stuff. The guys can only do so much. They can only direct the limited resources, which is their own time and effort, in a certain way as well. And at the end of the day, they'll direct it where they feel it serves the best purpose for them and their expertise.
And it's all open source, right? So if we charge $2 for it, somebody would just spin up a site that didn't charge $2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's thing. On my unrooted goggles and there. Let me reread this. On unrooted goggles, SD recording stops working when using video out. Can WTOFS get around this?
I mean, technically, yes, but yeah, I mean, technically, yes. So what's happening there is basically the same stream encoding is going one way or the other. We can make it go both places. Definitely possible. Again, just a matter of what people get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also the matter of the goggles sort of detach the SD card and export it to the PC that you're connecting to. But that we can easily disable. So what Brian was referring to is the main part of that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Right, guys, we've gone for an hour and a half. I'm going to do one more plug of this because I want to make sure that everyone who is here knows about this. So, guys, look, if you haven't seen it, it's available. It's still in beta status officially, isn't it? Just to make sure I get this right. However, from my point of view, there really hasn't been any major problems. There's been, we spoke about this off stream earlier, but you know, with these things, there's often user-based issues, people not following the instructions, etc. But I've seen not a single case that I've seen of some real proper problems at all. It's mostly been firmware issues and things like that.
There were early on some sort of DJI's internal bugs were catching us off guard, but I think we've solved all the real ones there. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. And look, someone's just asked you. It's a really good question, actually. Can you remap the buttons on the goggles? Could we remap the control buttons?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's quite a cool one, isn't it? Yeah, that would be interesting. To what is the question, I suppose, isn't it? Because you still need recording and you still need back. So what else are we gonna? I suppose it makes, if we don't have them for that, what else can you do?
Well, I don't. Maybe by remap they just mean a different orientation of it or something. But the other thing again we could do is literally get your stick inputs and use those. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird because some people have mentioned on the avatar goggles they'd like to change the direction of the joystick. I find it fine. I've not found it a problem at all that it's not. I find its orientation is right, but people are asking to rotate it.
Other problems there, I think, the back behavior and so on.
Yeah, some other stuff as well. But yeah, so I suppose, you know, if someone wants to do it, again, it's an open source project. It's available. If you want to get involved, you can do it as well. Now, I'm going to hop to the desktop very quickly a second before I come back. Right, here's the configurator, everyone. It's available. You can root, you can do the WTOFS, and then you can do everything else. Again, please consider donating to the project. If you use this, the links are in the description. contribute to it via the Open Collective as well. Everything you donate will help the project in the future. It's not just about being able to support what they've done already, but it's about being able to support what we can get from it in the future. I want to say to you two gentlemen a massive thank you for joining me on the stream tonight. It's been a privilege. It's been a tough week. It's been a tough week for everyone, actually. It's been crazy, really, really crazy. It's been great to watch it deliver as well, to watch the project get to the stage it's today, and then just watch the excitement as people start doing stuff like dropping OSD fonts and dropping all of this stuff. It really has been fantastic. So, you know, for me, it's been a privilege to have you both on the channel. I hope you'll come back again, actually, in the future when there is something else to talk about as well.
I definitely would be happy to do that, Ian. And yeah, so my main message, I think, is more developers, check out our GitHub, check out the project on there. A lot of the stuff we've already talked about today is on there. And you know, come hop on the Discord, we'll help you get started. And yeah, thanks a lot, Ian.
No problem at all. Everyone in the chat, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's been with us tonight. I hope we've answered all of the questions. If you haven't had your question answered, get onto the Discord. Link is in the description. One of us will be there, including myself. Brian's there, Eunice is there. Everyone is around. There's a great team of people who are there to help everyone as well. It is one of the best places to be, actually, at the moment, because it's quite buzzing, to say the least. So come over there. We'll help you out. We'll get you up and running. From me, thank you to everyone with the super chats. I'll be making sure all of them go to the guys as well, for those who have donated. And again, please use the link in the description of the video as well. Stay safe, and I'm going to try and find the button. It's never a graceful way to end a live stream, right? There really isn't. Here we go. Look after yourself, stay safe, and I will speak to everyone soon. Later.
Bye.